Hi, in this video I'm going to talk you through an example of combat in the game. We have here a lone Sherman with a 75mm gun against a Panzer IV. And in this example, the players pull out a pool chip, and it's an allied pool chip, so the allied player is going to fire the gun against the target. There are three stages to firing to combat. The first stage is you have to hit the target. The second stage is you have to penetrate the target's armour, and if that's successful, third phase would be to roll on the damage chart to see what happens to the target. So let's go through each one of those stages a little bit slower, one at a time. So to hit the target, you need line of sight. Line of sight is drawing a line from the target, from the firer to the target. There are terrain items that block line of sight. So for example, in this case, that tree line there, foliage tree, would block line of sight. In this example here, if I just took that just in camera, again, that would block line of sight. If the counter's in, for example there, it's actually in the tree line of sight is not blocked. So that Sherman has line of sight on there, so it doesn't intersect through. But in that example, it would be blocked. In this example, so it's in this tree line here, there are some trees in front, but the line of sight doesn't go through that hex, then that is fine for line of sight. That tank has line of sight on that Panzer IV. So line of sight is fine. Range. The far right number, the bottom of the far right numbers, is the range of the weapon of this particular armour. So it's a 7. Range is 7 hexes for normal range. Long range would be double that. So long range would be 14 hexes. So providing the target's within 14 hexes, it's within range of the weapon of the tank. But at 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, which it is, it's at normal range. A longer range is a penalty to hit. So once you've worked out line of sight is good, range is good, there are modifiers to the dice roll needed to hit. A unmodified dice roll is a 3, regardless. So this Sherman needs a 3 or more to hit the Panzer IV. But there are modifiers. If the Sherman had got a shaken counter, it's a -1, so that would be a 4. And if the Panzer IV was in the tree line, it'd be another -1, so it would be a 5. So the negatives stack, they accumulate. But in this example, you just need a 3. It is worth pointing out that a natural 6, so that's the dice roll you get, will always hit. Always hit. So there are cases where, because of the modifiers, you might in theory need a 7 to hit. But in this case, in the game, a natural roll of a 6 will always hit the target. But just to be clear, line of sight is good, range is good, there are no modifiers in this example, so you need a 3 to hit. If the player gets a 3 or more, then that target is shaken. It's been hit, it's now shaken. If it's been hit, you can now calculate to see if it's been penetrated. That's the armour of the target has been penetrated from the main weapon of the firer. There's a penetration value, which is the number on the far right, but the above number. In this case, it's a 0. So all you simply do is look at the target and look what its armour value is, which is the middle number, which is a 5. So that means that Sherman needs a 5 or more to penetrate its armour, because that's a 0. If, for example, let's pick we've got a Jackson here. That number there is a 2. So firing that Jackson against that Panzer IV to penetrate would need a 3. It normally needs a 5, but because it has a +2 on the penetration value of the gun of that Jackson, it needs a 3 to penetrate. But the Sherman with its 75mm gun needs a 5. If you get a 5, then the shot has penetrated the armour. But there's also another modifier that's absolutely crucial, and that's the modifier of the facing of the counter within its hex. In this example, this Sherman, its front 2 hexes are there, the Panzer IVs are there, so the shot is intersecting the front 2 hexes of the Panzer IV, so it's hitting it and its front armour, so it needs a 5. If, however, it was firing at the back, so there's its 2 front hexes, 2 side hexes, 2 rear hexes, this is firing now at the rear of the Panzer IV, that receives a -2 to its armour value, bringing it down to 3. So the Sherman would now only need a 3 or more to be able to penetrate the armour of the Panzer IV. If there are situations where it's unclear whether it's the side or the rear or the front or the side, it always goes in favour of the target, always. So let's pick an example here. So here we go. That's to the front, very clear. So no modifier. If the counter was orientated this way, there's its front 2, there's its side, so it would sort of goes in between the front and the side, so therefore it would be to the front, always to the advantage of the target. If it was orientated this way, that's its side hex, that's its rear. The shot goes in between the side and the rear, so the advantage goes to the defender, so it would be to the side, to the flank. But in that case, clearly to the rear. Again, if there's any doubt as to whether the shot is hitting the front or the side or the rear, it's always to the advantage of the defender. Now, in this case, this Sherman needs a 5 with its 75mm gun. It gets a 5. It's hit it, it's shaken, it's penetrated the armour, and then you roll on the damage chart to see what happens to the Panzer IV. There are several outcomes. One outcome is that the turret is jammed on the Panzer IV. It's a turreted vehicle. It gets a jam. That jam would need clearing if the player chose to do so later in the game. Whilst in a jam, the target can only fire in its front hexes. The outcome of the damage chart may be that it's destroyed, in which case it is replaced with a burning wreck counter. That counter then is taken out of play. Remember to take out an activation chit, a pull chit for the German playing that out of the cup for the next turn. That is now replaced with a burning wreck. The burning wreck stays in play for the rest of the game. And another outcome may be that the actual tank is caught fire, and an on fire counter is placed on. And all those rules are described fully in the rulebook. So as you can see, 3 stages to combat: hitting the target, penetrating its armour, and then rolling on the damage chart to see what the damage incurred is. The damage chart, for example, on a 1, it bounces off. So it's been penetrated, but not enough damage has been done. Whereas, for example, a 6, yeah, it's now a burning wreck. And you can see the damage chart in the rulebook. So hopefully that, just talking through an example of just the high level of how combat works. You can see it's very streamlined. All the numbers that you need to work out your hits are on the counters. There is a player aid that talks you through the stages of combat that has all the charts and modifiers on it. So yeah, thanks for watching.